So if you're working on shallowing the club through the trail arm, obviously the goal is to make sure that you are externally rotating the trail shoulder in transition. Like I said, the directional movement of this is the most important element if this is the variable that you're going to work towards helping you shallow the club. So do some half swings where you get into an area here where you actually have the trail shoulder not maxed out in external rotation. So a little bit of some internal movement here, some separation of the elbow back behind the body. And once you get there, you're going to see that the shaft is going to be a little up. Then exaggerate a lot of really slow motion shots. Even pitch shots at first are very acceptable. I have an 8-iron in my hands. I would probably work on hitting shots that are going 50, 60 yards at first, where I'm really exaggerating the shallowing of the club. So work on creating some separation to the elbow here, and then once you pause in this area, max out the external rotation on the way down and come down and hit some shots. That's what I would do if you're working on shallowing the club through the rotation of the trail shoulder. Then once you get comfortable with that, lengthen the swing out a little bit taller, and then again, work on maxing out your external rotation, do a lot of pump rehearsals, and then you can even pump, get the sensation of what it's like. Go again, pause at the top, create some space to the trail shoulder so you have room to externally rotate it, and then do that movement, and again, turn and hit some little pitch shots. If you're using the trail shoulder, that's the way I would go about it. And it's not necessarily very different if we're using the wrist angles. The concept would be very similar. I would again start with half and three-quarter swings. The only difference would be that rather than focusing on what the trail arm is doing, if you have the appropriate grip matchup to allow you to move the lead wrist into flexion to help you shallow the club, then I would again create a scenario where you give yourself space to shallow it, and then I would max the lead wrist into flexion, make sure the club head is dropping way low and inside behind the body. And then I would pause, I would do kind of a half swing here, and then max the lead wrist into flexion and get the club head way behind the body. And you can see if I do this correctly, my shaft gets very, very shallow, very far from the inside, and you're either going to hit some big pushes or some big hooks depending on what the hands are doing through the ball. So again, I would half swing, three-quarter swing, max the lead wrist into flexion, do some pumps as the hands are progressively lowering to really give you the sensation of what it's like to shallow the club. And when the lead wrist moves towards flexion with the grip matchup, you'll actually get the club face dialed in at the same time. So it has more than one benefit. So then again, I would do the same thing on a ball, and I would say, okay, half swing, then eventually three-quarter swing, max the lead wrist into flexion. Make sure you are progressively doing this on the way down. Club head is way inside the hand path in the downswing. Lead wrist is in flexion, and again, from there, you'll see that your shaft is going to start to shallow out and help you. So no matter what route you take, make sure you're going to do it correctly. There's obviously more than one way to do it, but there are better and worse ways to work on the shallowing of the club. I just want to make sure that you're not doing it by compensating your pivot, but rather through other variables so that you can still turn through the ball long term.